Welcome to 101 East. I'm Steve Chow. Chinese property buyers are on a foreign spending spree in the world's most sought-after cities. From New York's Manhattan to Sydney Harbor, real estate is seen as a safe place to stash money and a ticket to permanent residency. $660 billion in Chinese personal wealth sits offshore. This week, Drew Ambrose asks if Chinese homebuyers are a force to fear.
Cashed up and always looking to buy, Jennifer Tao is a real estate agent's dream. Jennifer's husband is a TV personality back in China. But here in the United States, her entire property portfolio is worth $8 million.
Because this house is very beautiful and price is very good.
She owns 5 houses in California, including this mansion in an exclusive gated community.
我一般选择房子比一般人要快得很多。
I choose houses much faster than normal people. If I like the look of the location and the prices of homes here in the neighborhood is good, then I pay upfront.
Chinese buyers spent $22 billion on US homes last year. California is their biggest overseas market. Jennifer says most Chinese come here to escape smog, congestion, and exorbitant taxes on real estate at home.
因为在中国
House prices in China are already very, very high. Some of my friends also have homes in Australia and Europe. I think when we buy them, it improves the economy and lifestyle of Americans.
California is also home to large Chinese American communities. Arcadia, a small city on the outskirts of Los Angeles, is a popular destination. The Asian population here has grown to 60%, up from just 4% 30 years ago. It's like a suburban Chinatown.
There's Chinese people everywhere. We don't need to know English. It's extremely convenient and a big advantage. They speak Mandarin in the bank and supermarket.
After divorcing her husband in Shanghai, Ming Yao moved to Arcadia for a new beginning. She's looking to buy a home because her adult daughter has enrolled in college here. Demand from Chinese buyers has pushed up house prices in Arcadia by 40% in just 3 years.
My younger brother came to visit and really liked it. Now he wants to buy in Arcadia. Most people come here with no plan to purchase, but they change their minds.
This buying bonanza is fueling a construction boom. Developers built more than 100 mega mansions in Arcadia last year. We're taking a glimpse inside one on the market. It has crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and enough space for several families. Now, the asking price for this mansion is almost $7 million US. And when you look at what features are available, there's 6 bedrooms, 5 fireplaces, a home theatre, but it's also tailor-made for the Chinese market. There's a wok kitchen out the back, and it's also a feng shui friendly design. Based on this ancient design principle, it's good luck to have mountains surrounding your home. Another reason why so many Chinese come to California. And to capture this positive energy, many mansions have water features, and rooms facing a certain direction.
Okay, so based on the chart of your home and when you moved in,
Those who specialise in feng shui, like Jennifer Bonetto, are as in much demand as developers. So they knock down the entire house, is that?
they knock down the entire house. We start from the ground up. I work with architects. They'll give me an initial floor plan, and then based on their birthday and the direction, because we have to decide on the specific degree that the home will face. Based on that, I'll make the revisions on the floor plan and then hand it back to the architect, and we go back and forth until we get their home perfectly feng shuied.
If they can knock down an entire house based on the principles of feng shui, how wealthy are these people?
Well, these are generally people that have multiple homes. These are people that are extremely affluent.
For China's super rich, the bright lights of New York also beckon. Home to more billionaires than anywhere in the world, the Big Apple is a gateway into America's elite social circles. So this is Midtown, the heart of Manhattan, and I'm off to meet a girl called Carol. She's a Chinese university student, and she owns 2 apartments in this building right here. So tell me a bit about yourself. When did you move to the United States?
So I grew up in China.
Carol was raised in Tianjin, but moved to the US during her teens. She went to an elite boarding school and says the outdoor lifestyle was the best. What was your horse's name?
His name is Slim.
Slim.
You can tell from here. Yeah,
Okay.
he's a boy and
Yeah.
he's pretty fast.
She says New York is home, even though her parents live in China.
My dad ran the real estate business in China. They also have hotels and malls or things like that. He starts from zero and then built his empire.
This is a more modern, and that one's a more classic modern.
Carol's parents spent a combined $5 million on her 2 apartments.
Leveled and then put moldings on.
In a few weeks, the renovations will be finished on one of them, this 17th floor penthouse.
This whole wall to be an entertainment wall, like the whole wall.
Compared to buying in popular Asian markets like Hong Kong and Singapore, Carol says the US delivers value for money.
Because of the high inflation rate in China and the real estate markets in China, it's relatively buying house here, it's cheaper than in China. It's a good investment.
America's Ivy League universities are also a powerful draw card. Many parents buy apartments for their children during their studies. Carol has just completed a business degree at New York University and plans to start postgraduate studies at Columbia this year. Do you feel as though you'd get a better education or a more well-rounded education?
The way we study is different from China. It's more, you have to find your own method or your own way to study. In China, you just study and sometimes you're not really studying anything.
By introducing longer student and business visas, the US government is trying to lure more Chinese buyers.
That makes people easier to come. Like, longer they stay here, maybe more willing they want to spend money here and get a property.
A short cab ride from Carol's apartment is Madison Avenue, famous for its luxury stores and boutiques. It's where Nikki Field and Kevin Brown sell expensive properties in the Big Apple for Sotheby's. The majority of their clientele are Chinese. 3 families are bidding for this $20 million mansion built in the 1880s, complete with staff quarters, private elevator, and a powder room.
Close to 51% of the buyers in Manhattan are international buyers. That is a telling number for us to all take into consideration, but the number that truly had all of us in our industry amazed was 1 in 4 are from mainland China. And next year, we may actually see that half of our sales in New York are going to be credited to China and the Chinese buyer.
The Russians are not the buyers any longer. The Chinese have taken their place, and it's again, I mean, it's pretty staggering.
If you walk New York right now and you see the plethora, 137 projects in some level of construction, and if you dig deep enough, you'll find that there is Chinese money behind almost every one of those investments.
They're snapping up the most expensive penthouses in buildings like 157, a 90-storey tower overlooking Central Park. One Chinese billionaire even bought an entire floor for $50 million.
One of our very, very first Chinese clients to buy in this building, they indicated they were purchasing it for their child that would no doubt be going to either Yale or Columbia soon in the States. When we inquired, when would that be? How soon? The building's not being finished for another 2 years. We want to make certain we have a home for your child in college. The family turned to us and said, no, our child is just 4. It'll be a few years. We have plenty of time.
Many big agencies like Sotheby's now have an Asia desk with brokers and bankers to work specifically with Chinese clientele. Kevin and Nikki often travel to Beijing to study Chinese language and culture.
Chinese in particular buy for a different reason than an American, for instance. I buy a tie or Hermes tie, and I sit there and I say, isn't this wonderful? Because I want to feel good, I want to look good, and it's all about emotions for me. Chinese, according to the cultural scientist, they say Chinese purchase for credibility.
15,000 kilometres away, across the Pacific Ocean, Australia has become the second biggest market for Chinese property investors. In one of Sydney's tallest towers, I meet Harry Triggerboff, the biggest builder and developer in the country. The billionaire believes Chinese buyers laid the foundation for many successful developments around Australia.
And if you see the cream buildings there, those are ours. 3 buildings there with the red roofs, the last one was ours. The main advantages are that they bring the money, and they're very steady purchasers. It's very important for a builder to know that he has them coming all the time. And because the local people are not that keen on buying as they used to be, it's a great help to us that somebody comes from outside and is buying.
His company Meriton sells up to 13% of its new apartments to customers from mainland China. Harry says Chinese investment brings Australia benefits like jobs, development and stability.
The government understands that without them, there would be a lot less building. Before, a few years ago, we were all crying and screaming why there were no cranes. Today we have some cranes. And so there's work, and the government wants that work.
Harry was born in northwest China, where his parents were refugees. Now nearing retirement, he's planning to sell his business to Chinese developer Country Garden for a rumoured $10 billion.
I don't think there's anybody big enough in Australia to buy me, so I have no choice. It has to be somebody from outside.
Australian-owned websites are also making huge profits from Chinese interest in the property market. David Platter works for Juai.com, which provides property listings in Mandarin for 58 countries.
There are a number of Chinese who have purchased property without visiting it in person. It does happen. It happens regularly, absolutely. For example, there was someone who bought I think it was an $11 million apartment in New York City without ever visiting it, and they did the whole transaction using social media.
The US, Australia and UK are the top 3 destinations for sales on July. The site has sold over 2.5 million properties, with buyers most attracted to places with stable markets, strong laws and good business opportunities.
Momentum is shifting from what used to be the gateway cities to other locations that might not have seen a buyer from overseas, especially from China, in recent years.
Like where?
For example, in the UK, from London, which is still number 1, but the growth is faster in places like Birmingham or Oxford. In the US, Dallas is seeing an increase.
David says China's hunger for property has intensified since Australia and other countries introduced new investor visas.
Because it brings money into a new economy, it brings dynamic individuals into an economy, and it brings tax revenue to the government involved. 80 to 95% of the people taking those up are Chinese.
Many Chinese coming to Australia on investor visas are clients of Monica too. She sells harbourside mansions to rich Chinese migrants.
If you invest $5 million in Australia, and so you basically can have like a permanent resident, I think that's a really clever move from Australian government. The $5 million, you cannot buy a house, so it's got nothing to do with buy a luxury property. So the money has to be invested in some kind of funds or some kind of business. The clients I'm dealing with, so they are very driven business people, so they're highly successful back in China.
Monica started selling real estate with her husband Jad in 2008. Last year, they made more than $120 million.
There's an area in Australia, or in Sydney, so it's #1 area in Australia. It's called Point Piper, and just last about 2-3 weeks, and I sold already about 2 properties, and this property on the market for 4 years. Should we walk around a little bit?
Today, Monica is showing her client Maggie Wang around an estate with 4 houses, horses, stables, spas and a helipad.
After I came to Australia, I fell in love. I'm from Beijing. Before coming here, I used to work for a construction design company. I immigrated to Australia hoping for better business opportunities.
So the party, everything is here.
Maggie already owns a Sydney mansion, but she's considering this $18 million property as a base for her wedding business. She says China's elite always look to expand their property portfolio.
There's a saying in Chinese that says, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. So the idea might be that they need to put their eggs in different baskets, including in mainland China, Australia, the US, Canada, etc.
Clients like Maggie trust Monica as a broker, confidant and all-round troubleshooter.
这个里边你随便做什么，对吧？你可以你打麻将，你按摩，然后呢你就是中药的那个药疗，然后游泳还有赛马。You know, you can keep a couple of horses. You know, do some like horse riding course, and you can have a little driver range. You know, 90% of my clients don't have a clue of English, right? So that's why we provide like a help desk for them, to help them to pay the bills and get the plumbers and of course to style the properties.
She also helps clients find schools for their children, build connections and see the best Australia has to offer. That includes a visit to Monica's favourite luxury pearl shop.
It's priceless.
But China's strict currency controls can make it difficult for investors to move large amounts of money overseas. By law, they can only take $50,000 a year out of the country.
How the money comes out of China, I have no idea, really. I think that's their personal matter. We try to keep an arm's length in a relationship with our clients. I don't really care where the money comes from. I just want to get more listings.
Agents tell us investors use their relatives, Hong Kong bank accounts, and online moneylenders to move large amounts of cash abroad. Some shady financial institutions in China offer credit and under-the-table services to wealthy clients. It's estimated more than $1 trillion has left the country illegally since 2002. However the money comes in, Chinese buyers are spending big in Australia. Up to $17 billion a year, according to the most recent figures. By law, they can only buy new properties. But home buyers advocate David Morrell says many Chinese investors are buying older, more established homes illegally.
You know, when you get a 20-year-old girl buying a $3 or $4 million house, you've got to ask the question, seriously, is this really for you? Of course it's not. But of course the agents, the lawyers, and even the bankers aren't going to report the issue because they're all making money out of it.
David and other analysts blame foreign investment for soaring house prices in Australia's urban centres.
Well, what happens, it's a bit of a domino effect. So if some property up the street gets $20 million, then the other people in the street think they're also going to get more.
He says the rules governing foreign investors are poorly enforced.
In Melbourne, it's easier to buy a $20 million house than it is to buy a second-hand car of $2,000. You know, the car, you have to produce all these, a raft of information about yourself. With a house, you just have to produce a cheque. I like to see the Foreign Investment Review Board, which is Australia's watchdog for people investing in Australia to have more effect into the marketplace. They've got some great rules, but they're totally under-resourced and they don't actually know how to react to the problem.
Kelly O'Dwyer is an Australian government MP. She recently led a national inquiry into the impact of foreign investment on property prices.
I think the framework is right. I think the enforcement has not been as good as it could have been.
Is there an offer on the apartment?
600.
600,000.
730.
The inquiry proposed tougher controls and steeper fines to crack down on foreign buyers who break the rules. She says there hasn't been a single prosecution of a foreign investor since 2006.
And I've been pretty critical of the Foreign Investment Review Board. I think that they have been asleep at the wheel.
Back in California, there are similar fears that Chinese investment is driving up property prices. April Velato is one of the leading voices in Arcadia, calling for greater restrictions.
We don't know who exactly is buying the homes. We're not seeing anybody move in. And that's, I mean, it's just another empty house on the street. And if you keep adding that up, you know, then we're at a ghost town of big houses.
A member of the local homeowners association, she's concerned by reports that 20% of Arcadia's exclusive mansions are unoccupied.
Our neighborhoods and our homes are becoming somebody's investment portfolio, as opposed to someplace where people want to live. These people are just parking their money.
She fears absentee owners will pull out if there's a market downturn, causing prices to crash in Arcadia.
Maybe it's, you know, their golden parachute or their plan B if everything goes bad in China. Yeah. They have someplace to go. We have a very speculative market. There's no real foundation or basis for this market.
The Chinese government also wants to know where the money is coming from. President Xi Jinping has targeted corrupt officials and business leaders who are hiding money in overseas property. 84,000 people have reportedly been caught. It's caused Chinese buyers to be more secretive about their purchases in cities like New York.
When the president was elected, we saw within 1 week a shift in attitude of our Chinese customers. Our Chinese customers no longer necessarily wanted the trophy property. Now all of a sudden they were looking, saying maybe we don't need to buy the most flashy item.
But it's not slowing down sales. A recent survey of China's millionaires found 60% of them plan to live overseas.
I think China is developing, and then some people are uncertain what's the China's future goal, so they want to be more secure, like to have another backup, I guess.
What do you mean by a backup? What does that mean?
If anything happen in China, then they always can come here.
Carol says buying a home overseas is a trend likely to continue for generations.
My mom always said that I'm a experiment, kind of. By myself going through this whole process, I can decide what I do for my children. We have that opportunity. We can come and broaden our views and to see how people in other parts of the world live and what they're thinking. Then why wouldn't we come?
As more people in China become wealthier, they continue to seek a safe haven for their money overseas. This is giving Chinese buyers an unparalleled grip on the global property market. While prospective local buyers might despair, others are cashing in. And the money keeps flowing into the world's most livable cities.